and that's why I don't know how I didn't see that. Alright, so we can move on to the next sentence for now. So print suddenly can't type properly. I stumbled upon we're going to end our sentence with a space, or end our string, sorry. Concatenate it with the thing variable. Concatenate again. And this one ends with a period, the same as last time, so it's pretty simple. Alright, we know that's correct because it's the same as the previous sentence. So we'll just move on to the third sentence, and this one doesn't contain any extra stuff, any variables or anything, so I can just write it out. Alright, and then the next one. Alright, so this one actually has three separate things we have to concatenate. So we have to concatenate this string to this variable, and then this variable to this string. So it's all one. Alright, so I'll do the number first, obviously. So the number variable. And then we want to attach that one to, this one will have to have a space because it's not a punctuation as previous. Times like that. Alright. And then the last sentence. Alright, my injuries cost, I'll end it, or I'll put a space, end it, and then concatenate this to the money variable, concatenate that to, I'll need a space, in medical expenses, and there we go. So for the basic first draft of this should be pretty much finished. So let's run it to make sure we didn't have any errors. I'm just going to put in random things for the high, 12, 430. Alright, one day I was walking through the high, suddenly I stumbled upon a high, it attacked me, and I nearly died. Can't believe this has happened 12 times, so I forgot space. My injuries cost 430 in medical expenses. Alright, so first I'm going to fix this space, and then I'm going to discuss some things that's wrong with this. So that's where I needed the space. Alright, so one thing that's wrong with this is, so I'm asking up here, I'm asking for a string because I need a noun. Up here I'm asking for another string. Here I want an integer, and then here I want a float. But the program obviously doesn't know that as of now. Like if I went back to it and the very first one, since I'm asking for a place, I mean, I'll just put in a place, but like this one, for instance, if I'm asking for a number, if I put in something else, pizza, it still accepts it, pizza. So as you can see, those aren't, I can edit this further so that they have to input certain things. So and that's where the previous video comes in, the type functions, which I'll be including now. So the way you want to do this is you have to declare you can declare what these inputs are by using the type, calling what type of function it is. So this one, for instance, is a string. Oh, and just so you know, all inputs are initially read as strings. So if you don't declare it, they're automatically by default set as a string. Anyways, so what I want to do is, this one is a string, so I'm just going to put it as a string anyway, just to make sure that nothing would go wrong. So that's all you have to do. I'll call it as a string, put my the function bracket or parentheses, and then close it at the end, just to say that, hey, this is a string. You can do the same thing for this one. And then the same thing for this one. Oops, sorry, I spoke too soon. So this one isn't a string. This one will be the integer, so I'll just change it to integer. That way they can only put in an integer. And then this one would be a float, so they can only input a float. So the difference between string, input, and float, you already know, but So for string, you can actually still input an integer and a float, because an integer and a float can be a string, if that makes sense, because they can it can be included as a string, but for integer and float, you cannot input a string. It has to be an integer and float, if that makes sense. So now if we go back, so enter a place, town, enter a thing, apple, enter a number. So I want to enter pizza again, and as you can see now, it doesn't allow me to enter pizza because it's wanting a string or a integer. So just one more time, town, apple, 12. See, now it works. And then pizza, it doesn't work. All right. So another thing that I want to do is when it outputs the money, I would like it to have a $sign. Instead, so, or not instead, but a dollar sign with the money instead of just showing the decimal. What I'm going to do is just put the $sign here. Actually, I think that should work. Let me just double check. For a pizza. Okay, so this error, there was another mistake we made. So speaking of concatenating the addition signs, so there is another way to concatenate. I think I mentioned it in the last video, but I'm not sure if I did or not. But since we changed these input types to int and float, so you cannot concatenate. You can concatenate strings together using the addition sign. As you can see, it worked before because, like I said, these are all read as strings if you don't declare what they are. But now, since we have declared that this one's an integer and this one's a float, it's not working for these two because with the addition sign. So what we're going to have to do, instead of using the addition sign, we're going to have to use we have two options actually. So we can use a comma, and it will work to concatenate it. We can just put a comma here instead. Or something that I think I would rather do, because a comma creates like a space that I don't like dealing with, like an extra space. So what I'm going to do is you can change the output. So the input is read as an integer, but now I can change the output back to a string if I want, so I can concatenate it as strings again with the addition sign instead of having to worry about. Just to show you what I'm talking about really quick, so let me take out all the spaces and just put a comma here to concatenate. And show you why I don't. Maybe there's a way to fix it, but I'm not aware of that. Or how to not use like extra spaces. So if we do it like this, this should work now. Town, apple, 12, I don't know, 320. Alright, so yeah, it works. But you see how there's like a bigger space than normal? And it just looks weird. There's a space here that I don't want as well, which I guess I could fix that, but I don't know, it just looks different for me. It's just your preference. So commas work for concatenating strings and integers and floats, like all of them combined. But you can use these for just strings. But let me show you the other way I was going to do it. So I want to still use my way. So the addition sign with a space after these. And then I'm just going to convert the output variable, instead of when it's input, back to a string. So all I gotta do is call this a string, like that. Call the variable a string. Same thing with the float. So string, and then I want to change these back to an addition sign. Put the spaces, no space there. Alright, so this should work the same way, except for without the spaces. And my keyboard messed up there and just started pressing enter a million times, but anyways. So as you can see, one day I was walking through the town. Suddenly I stumbled upon an apple. It attacked me and I nearly died. I can't believe this has happened 12 times. My injuries cost 2. Alright, so there's another issue that we have that I'll show you how to fix. So this decimal, it automatically rounds to the 10th thing. So since there's a 0, since I input 210, it just cuts off the 0. If you want it to be there's another function. I'll just show it in this tutorial, but I'll probably go over it more in depth at a later time. There's another function you can use to round to a specific decimal place, which in our case we want it to be the 100th. But I'll show you how we can do that. So it's for a float. So I'm just going to there's a function called a format. So I'm going to format is what it's called. I'm going to call the format function, and I'm going to format this variable. And the way I'm going to do that is, this is what it would look like. So I got to put a comma to concatenate this variable with a string. It looks like this. So single quotes and then a period or a decimal place is counting for this decimal place. And then I want to put a 2 and then an F and then another. So this is basically just saying I'm formatting this variable to two decimal spaces. So no matter what, it'll have 2 decimal spaces. Even if it's supposed to be a float that has 100, even if it was the entire pi, it would automatically round down to 2 decimal spaces. You can also use the round function for this that will round down. However, it's less, you have less control over that. This, you can literally specify what you want. And I have to end the function as well. So that should fix that problem. So let's re-look at this. So what was it? Town, apple, let's just put 310. And I see what I did wrong. I'm an idiot. So what I did wrong is I put the parentheses on the wrong side, but I can fix that by wait, actually I have an extra parentheses. Nope. I am lost. Hold on one second. Alright, so my string and then the format and then the money, that's 2, and that's 2. That's all I need. So I had an extra one. That was the problem, like I thought. Alright. Alright, there. Sorry about that. So yeah, as you can see now, it rounds down to, or it puts 2 decimal spots no matter what. And that's how you create a very, very simple Madlib. You could get way, way more detailed with this if you wanted, but this should work for a basic Madlib if you're trying to make one. But yeah, please leave any suggestions or feedback in the comments, and I will see you next time.